Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our continuing series of discussions on the Bhagavad Puran. So we successfully managed to uh, study the entire first canto, and now we are entering into the crux of the Bhagavad philosophy. In fact, the chapter that we are discussing today is, in a sense, in fact, the very first few verses of this chapter is going to summarize the essence of Bhagavatam, the essence of the Vedic teachings. It's all going, the summary of the summary is going to come in this. So this is a very, very special chapter. And if you recall what happened previously, Parikshit Maharaj, he's now cursed to die in 7 days, and he decides to surrender to the devotees of the Lord, surrender to the great souls, the enlightened masters. And in that august assembly of masters walks in the great Sukadeva Goswami. And now he asks him that question, the very, very pertinent question. In fact, a question that all of us should actually be asking. What is the duty of a person in general, and especially duty of a person who's about to die? And in a sense, both the questions are same because nobody knows when death is coming. So it's the same question. It's a question equally applicable to everyone. So in general, what is the ultimate duty of a person? Because if you think about it, what makes the living entity struggle in this world is for want of a purpose, for looking for an objective in life. And that very question Parikshit Maharaj is asking, what is the objective of life? Right? What is it that a person is supposed to do? So if you see, therefore, Bhagavatam is a book for everyone. For every living entity has to read this book and understand this science, because the question, the topic that is being discussed is equally applicable to all. Right? Because if you see, different scriptures may have different contexts, but here Bhagavatam, the very subject matter of Bhagavatam is, it's a topic about people in general. What should be their life objective? And that question, Sukadeva Goswami is going to begin his answer. So the second canto begins with this very, very beautiful, very succinct summary of the Vedic essence. So if you recall, in the first canto, when the sages of Naimisharanya asked very similar question, that what is the the highest dharma? And Sutta Goswami, he said that the highest dharma is that which is about unconditional, unmotivated love for the Supreme. Right? So now let's hear what is the take that Sukadeva Goswami is going to give on this topic. So he begins his discourse by reciting our very familiar mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is where the tradition of invocation, the tradition of seeking blessings from what does Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya mean? O my Lord, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Because we are trying to connect, because this journey, if you see, the answer to this question of Parikshit Maharaj is going to change our life forever. So in this life-transforming journey, we need some support, we need some shelter, we need to invoke some higher energies. And so we are trying to connect to that aspect of the absolute truth, that aspect of the Supreme Lord who is all-pervasive. So the word Vasudeva means that. Vasudeva Sarvamiti, one who understands that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere. In fact, this theme is going to repeatedly come in this chapter. So Sukadeva Goswami, he's basically saying that the Supreme Absolute Truth is right now present with us. So let's invoke his auspicious blessings and then begin our discussion. And then he glorifies Parikshit, saying, Variyante eta prashna, this question, oh, what a glorious question you have asked. Because this answer to this question is loka hitam. It is for the benefit of loka, for the entire humanity, right? Every living entity can benefit from this question, from understanding the answer to this question. right? And then he says, because the answer to this question is actually the main subject matter of hearing, as is approved by all transcendentalists. Prabhupada writes a beautiful purport to this. Prabhupada, he explains that how actually question and answers about Krishna can award one perfection of life. That should be the main topic, right? Because one's mind should be absorbed in hearing about Krishna's extraordinary activities. See, the mind wants some. Why are we drawn to gossip? Because it is extraordinary. All the page 3 news, why are we drawn to that? Why are we drawn to all the tabloids? Because it is extraordinary news. Our life is so different from, our life is ordinary, but what happens in the tabloids is extraordinary. So, but then when Krishna comes and when he performs his activities, he does extraordinary activities. I mean, with the little finger of his left hand, he lifts a mountain. He transforms into a gigantic boar and lifts the entire earth. He comes out of a pillar and destroys the greatest demon ever. So if you see, I mean, all Krishna's stories are only VFX. Nothing ordinary about him. Right? If you want to replicate any of Krishna's pastimes, you have to resort to VFX. No, nothing ordinary. Right? So the original story writing, he's the original storyboard maker, because he knows what will captivate the mind of the jiva who's so busy struggling in this material world. So therefore Prabhupada writes that actually one's mind should be absorbed in hearing about these uncommon, extraordinary activities of Krishna. Right? And that's how one can remain aloof from material conditioning. Just like how our mind is so absorbed in material things that we are aloof from spirituality, we need to reverse the tide and absorb our mind, because we are where our mind is absorbed in. That's the ultimate truth. Physically, we may be somewhere, or even mentally, maybe be trying to do something, but we are where our mind is. Even right now, some of you are staring at the screen, but where is your mind? We do not know, right? So are you in the class? Are you in the screen, right? So that's the point here. So this, the point is, we need to create opportunities to absorb our mind in Krishna, and what better than listening to his beautiful, extraordinary pastimes. And Prabhupada gives an analogy of Harikatha, Krishna's pastimes, to be like the flowing river Ganga. Wherever Ganga flows, she purifies the banks, both spiritually and materially. There is both spiritual prosperity and material prosperity. How spiritual prosperity we understand. It's a very holy river. Just, just being in the presence of Ganga, the flowing Ganga, when you see, you will be drawn to her. You will feel like just sitting there and meditating. If you ever go to Haridwar or Rishikesh, or Prayag, right, or even all the way down Ganga Sagar, where Ganga meets the bay of the sea, even at that point, whenever you see the mighty Ganga, you will feel, you'll be just drawn to its might. You'll feel like, what is this extraordinary force of nature? Srila Prabhupada, he grew up in the British India, and in his curriculum there were so much of poetry. British poets, he had to read all the Victorian English and the British poetry, and all the British poets would glorify and eulogize the Thames. So in his mind, he always visualized, because his frame of reference was Ganga. So, and especially in some parts of India, the width of Ganges runs into kilometers. So he had that conception in his mind. And for the first time, when he went to London and he saw the Thames, he was like, this little canal, this is what these poets were glorifying, right? How is this a river? This is just like a simple canal, right? And if you see most rivers in many part of the world, right, they are how wide? You can literally see, the other end from where you are standing for most length of the rivers. right? But Ganga is not like that. It's so gigantic, and because of that, she carries all the silt and the natural minerals from the mountains and deposits it across its banks. And that's how she is giving material prosperity also. Even the minerals, the all the positive ions which are there from the mountain, the metallic ions. That's why when no bacteria can survive in that kind of water, right? Because of once it's going to the mountains, especially copper ions or any metallic ions, they are antibacterial, right? So that's why Ganges water is considered very holy and sacred and has medicinal properties too. So both physically, from a health point of view, spiritually, Ganges is purifying. That's the potency. Just like that, Harikatha, wherever it goes, it purifies one. That's how potent. That's why Sukhdev Goswami is so excited with this question of Parikshit Maharaj. He says, Lokahitam, your question, it seems, I mean, can you imagine? Even King Parikshit, he has 7 days to live. And the topic of discussion could have been of something of his personal interest. What is it that I should do for my liberation, for my benefit, to save me? But in his question itself, there was this broadness of his thought process. What is the duty of a person in general, and especially a person about to die? So that question is this is the topic, because if you see even the brief history of human philosophical inquiry, death has been a very, very important factor that has inspired people to think beyond life. While we are absorbed in the day-to-day activities of life, we forget about the purpose of life. But when death confronts us, right, it makes us go beyond. So this one time, one person who was like a very, very materialistic kind of a person, even in his ripened old age, he could not move, he could not eat, but still he was so absorbed in his business. And his children were frustrated with him. And they were saying, Father, you are old now, you should focus on certain deeper aspects of life. Why are you still intervening in the business and all this? So then somehow the kids, they wanted to teach him. So they finally decide, let's take him to a crematorium. So they take him to a crematorium, and as soon as he sees the dead body being burnt on those piles of wood, immediately that father, the old man, he starts crying. And then the kids, wow, for the first time ever, our father has become serious. He's thinking about life and beyond and death, right? So just to kind of confirm, they look at his father and says, Father, why are you crying? He says, if only I had come here earlier, my life would have been so different. Oh, the kids are even more excited. Wow, finally father has learned. I didn't know there was so much demand for wood. I should have started a wood business. I would have been more richer. So, for a materialistic person, right, we are where our mind is, as I said. When your mind is absorbed in money and these, petty things of life, then even in the crematorium, you will only see opportunity to make wealth, right? So this is what he's saying. Parikshit Maharaj, he asked, what is it that we should hear and what we should not hear also? So Sukhdev Goswami is saying, even though Harikatha is so potent, not everyone absorbs their mind in it. He says that most people, right, they are blind. They are blinded. Apashyatam means something that is hiding in their plain sight. It's right in front of you, but people can't perceive this. If you think about it, death is happening all around us. You open the news, the first headline is something to do with death. Somewhere in the top 3, you will see death. It is staring us. In the Mahabharata, Yudhishthir Maharaj was asked a lot of tricky riddles by one yaksha, by one celestial entity. And he asked, what is the most amazing thing about this world? And Yudhishthir Maharaj, he replies that everybody is seeing death, but is thinking it will not happen to me. Or in other words, nobody is understand the gravity that one day we our all the things that we have invested our energies in are going to end, including, I'm not talking about the external energies, even your own body and your mind are not going to support you. So yet this truth, which is, which is dancing everywhere around you, yet we conveniently ignore this truth, right? So this is how they are blinded to this knowledge of the higher truth, Atma Tattva, understanding of the self. They are blinded to this, right? And that is how the ordinary, he uses the word griheshu grihamedhinam. Grihamedhi means one who's too absorbed in their day-to-day activities, the household activities, right? In fact, he explained the psychology of such a person. Such a blinded person, entire day they are busy making money or maintaining, their social prestige and family and friends, and the night time they are just wasting away their time in sleeping or in sexual indulgence. That is the only thing that they are wasting their time in, and day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And suddenly one day when you are 90 and when death is staring you, you look back and ask, have I done anything worthwhile in my life? Right? And this is something very serious to think about. If you carefully look, all the successful people of this world, right, from Bill Gates to Warren Buffett to, even the young successful people like Zuckerbergs of this world, if you look at all of them, they have achieved the heights of material prosperity, and yet they experience some hollowness. The only way they could fill that hollowness is by, even though the technologies they created, the products, the services, even as political leaders also, the social changes they have brought, definitely they have worked for a higher purpose for sure. But despite that, they all experience some lacuna in their life, some hollowness in their inner space. And 90% or even 99% of them who they all want to channelize that through some kind of selflessness, because for them spirituality is, going past the ego, cultivating that selflessness, whether in terms of starting some foundations or charities, right? Because that's the only thing in that ripened state of success is what that could give them solace. They are able to sleep peacefully in the night, not on the laurels that they have accumulated over the years of their life, but rather on the simple acts of charity, the simple acts of some selflessness that they are able to do in their life, right? Something thinking beyond themselves. So this should be a clue to us that, see, most of us are chasing their life, our dreams, right? Our impossible dreams are their possible realities. And yet, what is it that people who are already there, what are they aspiring for? Even they are aspiring for something beyond that. So that should give us a hint that, hey, there is something more to life than all these things that the society is running behind. And that comes in somewhere going beyond your own self, connecting to something beyond you. So this should be a strong hint for us. This is that hidden truth, right? Which is blatantly there, but still we are closing our eyes to this reality, right? And he says that such people, they do not inquire into these real problems of life, and somewhere they repose their shelter, their faith in the fallible soldiers in the form of their own body, their spouse, their children, and thus they do not see their inevitable destruction. So mind you, poor Parikshit Maharaj, if you remember in the last chapter, he already felt very guilty that, oh, I wasted so many years of my life. So Sukdev Goswami is not rubbing salt in his wounds. Please understand, there were so many different varieties of philosophers sitting in that assembly. And some of the philosophers believed in the concept of materialism. They also came there to see the king depart from this world. And Sukadeva Goswami is indirectly hinting at them that here you have been teaching all your life, and to your followers and you yourself, you are so focused on material prosperity, and you thought this is the ultimate purpose of life. But look, these are all fallible soldiers in our army, right? If you see many Egyptian mummy pyramids, when we started excavating them, all the gold, all these great kings, when they die, all the gold and some foodstuffs, so much of wealth is buried with them, right? And they think that in the afterlife I need to use that. Some legends say that in the afterlife you need to bribe the boatman who will take you across that river that is a barrier between life and death. There's so many such stories around it. But if you see, who has that wealth now? Some museum somewhere. The king could not take even a single gold coin with him, right? So these are the fallible soldiers that we are trying to invest in, right? So he is not, again, Sukadeva Goswami is not condemning material endeavors. He's condemning materialism, right? A concept which we have repeatedly studied in the Bhagavad Gita, that how the Vedic spirituality does not condemn our interaction with matter, it condemns our indulgence in matter. So there's a difference between interaction and indulgence, right? So that overindulgence is what he's trying to question. Therefore, he says that, so then what is it that one has to do? What is that, so this, starting from this point, the next few verses, you are going to get the essence of the essence of the essence, right? So he says that Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma. So therefore, oh great descendant of the Bharata Kula, of the dynasty of King Bharata, this is what you need to do, O Parikshit. Bhagavan Ishwara Hari, Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha. So this is what you need to do. That one who desires to be free from all miseries must, right? It's not a suggestion, but he is very emphatic about it. He must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. So irrespective of which path of spirituality you may take up to, right? If you are like a yogi who's trying to connect to the super soul as Sarvatma. Sarvatma means that essence of life which is present in everyone. That is what an advanced yogi is trying to see that kind of a unifying connection, that common connection in everyone. Whether you are a yogi, then that Sarvatma, or whether you are a very advanced devotee connecting to Bhagavan. Bhagavan means the Supreme Lord along with his divine feminine energy. That combination is what is. So Lord in his complete opulence, that very sweet devotional opulence. So whether you are a very advanced pure devotee, or whether you are a struggling spiritualist, because what is the only primary objective of a struggling spiritualist? Oh Lord, save me, right? Save me from the misery of my boss. Save me from the misery of taxes. Save me from the misery of my professor, right? So we all have different levels of miseries. So therefore, Ishvara means, one who is in supreme. When we lose control of our life, we connect to the supreme controller, right? So all these three psychologies, whether you are a beginner transcendentalist, whether you are an advanced yogi, or whether you are an advanced devotee, right? The ultimate aim of whichever path you may take, it is to hear and glorify and remember the Supreme Lord, right? And very powerful statement, he says that Etavan Sankhya Yogyabhyam, whether you want to understand through Sankhya philosophy, like a Jnani, understand the difference between matter and spirit, and that is the path of spirituality you may take, or Yoga Bhyam, whether by mastering the Ashtanga Yoga, mastering your body, your prana, your senses, right, your mind, and that's how you're trying to very slowly peel off your connection from matter like a yogi, right? Or whether you are sticking to the path of duty, sarva dharma parinishta, like who's very, very dutifully performing one's regulated duties, following one's the moral codes of conduct, right? Whoever you may be, that janma labha parapumsam ante narayana smriti. Ante means in the end, Narayana, the Supreme Lord. So it's amazing how, it's not just poetry just to fit in the, in the rhyme. Sukdev Goswami uses a different word, but every time he's referring to Supreme Lord, there's a particular connotation. The word Narayana means one who's protector of all naras, protector of all living entities. So you have to remember your ultimate protector, Narayana Smriti. Smriti means to remember, right? The ultimate aim of all these different paths of spirituality is to remember the Supreme Lord at the end of your life, right? The very nice statement Prabhupada many times make, that if life is a preparation, then death is the examination. When you fail the exam, what happens? You have to go back and prepare again. That is rebirth, right? So the whole design of this world, so that's why many times we discussed in the past also how this world is not a prison house, as certain schools of philosophy or certain religions may explain. This world is not a prison house. This world is designed to be like a correction facility. It's a university. It's a school for us. And in a school, there are exams. But the exams don't just come randomly. You are trained to answer the exam. So if you see the way life is organized, there are so many tests that we go through in life. The objective of all these tests is to prepare us, is to train us. How do we react? Am I getting carried away by life situations, or am I able to center myself, ground myself on certain higher principles? Right? Am I getting absorbed in materialism, or am I getting absorbed in spirituality? Right? Who am I thinking about the most? Am I thinking only about me and my ego all the time, or am I able to transcend that and think about the Supreme Lord? Am I so this whole that ante narayana smriti, it's a whole lifetime of preparation that will culminate in that final moment, that complete absorption in that final moment, right? And Sukdev Goswami says that how so many great transcendentalists in the past have recommended this process, right? And they take great pleasure. Even the liberated souls, they derive great pleasure in glorifying the Lord. So this shows that how Harikatha is not just a means to a different goal. It is the means and it is also the goal. So once Srila Prabhupada was asked, why are you chanting Hare Krishna? So he said, so that we can chant more. Right? So if you see, many of the spiritual processes, the path and the goal are different. The method and the goal are different. Meaning, when you are following the path of regulated action of karma, the goal is to attain purification. So when you are following certain rules and following certain discipline, the goal is to purify your body, your senses, and your energies. But once you have achieved that purification, then those activities are no more relevant. It is just like, why do you take a shower every day in the morning? To clean yourself. But once you are clean, will you still again just stay in the shower all day? Right? Once the cleaning is over, you will just come out of the shower and get back to life. So the purpose of shower is only while there is dirt on you. But once you are cleansed, you will never ever have to visit that shower again. Likewise, what the point of jnana? Jnana, it creates in us a sense of detachment coming from intelligence. Knowledge instills in us a sense of detachment so that we don't get carried away by our fleeting emotions, our fleeting likes and dislikes. Knowledge kind of centers your emotions and ensures that you don't get carried away by your likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha, attachments and aversions. So knowledge gives instills in us a sense of detachment, right? And with yoga, with Ashtanga yoga, we are able to control our mind. We are able to realize the self in that state, in that state of perfect mind control, when the mind becomes almost like a transparent crystal, where no more the past samskaras are influencing us. In that chitta vritti nirodha state, we are able to genuinely see the self. So that self realization happens that there, right? But once this happens, once you reach that goal, once detachment is achieved, knowledge is no more useful. Once self-realization is achieved, all that knowledge and the means of attaining that state is redundant. So the path and the goal are different. But whereas here Sukadeva Goswami, when he's talking about remembering the Lord through Harikatha, he's saying even the liberated souls, they can't get enough of it. It's like this one, that's why you'll never lose taste for it. Harikatha never gets old. And if you think about it, for 5,000 years, people have been reading that same Bhagavatam. For 5,000 years, people have been reading the same Bhagavad Gita. And the best part is, the same person, when they read second time, they get a deeper meaning, a different meaning. That shows how it is just like, let's say you met someone, right? Let's say you met your best friend, right? And next day, will you say, oh, I met you yesterday, right? What's the point of meeting you again today? Because every day it's a new conversation, every day it's a new dynamic interaction, right? Because it's a living person. Bhagavatam is also that living person. Scriptures are also that. Scriptures are the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So every time we are interacting with Bhagavatam, every time we are interacting with Vedic literature, we are actually directly coming in contact with the Supreme Lord. So it's just like meeting a person, and a person who has unlimited qualities. So you'll never get tired with that person. Sometimes the people of the world, you may possibly get tired, right? Despite your best attempts. But imagine meeting a person who has unlimited qualities. Every day you discover something new about this person. So that relationship will never get stale, right? So that is why, if you see the broader Vedic teachings, self-realization has two aspects. One, knowing what I am not, and two, knowing what I am, right? The not and what is not and what I am, these two are very important. So that's why, if you see the overall, there are only two important topics you will see throughout the Vedic literature: how you are not the body, and two, how you are spirit and you are connected to the Supreme Spirit. So the problem with the living entity in this material world is, it somehow got obsessed in this false love affair with matter, and it is trying to derive more and more, and the nature of matter is, it is limited in its qualities, right? Earth, water, fire, air, either what qualities do you expect? Fire will not become water, water will never become earth, right? Earth is earth, water is water. So how much will you interact with that? But the nature of the soul is unlimited. The soul has a capacity for unlimited enjoyment. In fact, the reason why we are so discontent in our life, it's a proof of the unlimitedness of the soul. We have so much of capacity to enjoy, to relish, to have a dynamic relationship, right? So every time we are going through some midlife crisis, every time you're going through depression, every time you're going through some suffering and pain or boredom, remind yourself, oh, this is a proof of my unlimited capacity and the limited capacity of matter. So no matter, so because in that wrong love affair, no matter how much you invest, right? Because right effort in a wrong relationship will ultimately lead to pain. On the contrary, sometimes little efforts in right relationship will lead to long-term gain. Even a small little effort that you make, but in the right direction, will take us long way ahead. So, and believe it or not, for lifetimes we have been stuck in this love affair with matter, and still, you know, we have to take birth again and again and again because it's not fulfilling us. And this should inspire us to understand that actually that only spirit can satiate me, it can satisfy me. Not, it can never satiate because spirit is unlimited, but it can satisfy me. And that is what Sukdev Goswami is saying. Even Nairgunya Sthita, even those who are beyond the gunas, who have transcended the sattva, rajas, tamas, even those living liberated souls also, they derive pleasure. If you remember in the first canto also we discussed that Atma Ramasya Munayo verse, how great Atma Ramas are those who are self-satisfied souls. Even those liberated, self-satisfied, those Jivan Muktas, the living liberated souls, right? Even they get attracted. Ittam Bhuta Guno Hari, right? Even they get attracted to listening to qualities of Lord Hari, right? That is the glory of this Hari Katha. And now Sukdev Goswami says, I have the perfect topic to teach you. What is the topic? Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam. This Purana called as Bhagavat Purana, which I heard from my father Vyasa. And this topic of Bhagavatam is what that will fully satisfy you, right? And he says that, and Prabhupada writes a very powerful purport here. He says that how to understand Bhagavatam. He says the process of Bhagavatam, studying of Bhagavatam, it is not like an academic book that you just make notes, highlight, and use your own imagination and speculation to understand. It is called as it's called as Avaroha Pantha. Avaroha Pantha means an ascending process. Then you connect to higher, so the mercy descends, right? So which means that only by connecting to a higher source can you understand Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada writes that how that it is not an intellectual exercise, but by submissive inquiry and service attitude can one understand Bhagavatam. So therefore, when you so the qualification is that one has to approach a qualified teacher like Vyasa, or align your thought process with Vyasa. Understand what is the mood, because today under the name of drawing out newer and newer lessons, right, people are diluting or even digressing the main topic and coming up with all kinds of weird lessons and 5 ways to fix your phone based on Bhagavatam. Right? So that's not the main topic. The main topic of Bhagavatam is that what is that ultimate duty, right? And how to absorb your mind through Harikatha, right? And therefore, he says, even I was previously situated in transcendence, and yet I was attracted to these amazing pastimes of the Lord, and who is glorified by these enlightened verses. That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you, because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. And he says, one who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam will achieve unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, who is the giver of salvation, Mukunda. Like that. So this he glorifies his Harikatha, and another very powerful verse. He says that those who are completely free from all material desires, or those who have still lot of materialistic desires, right? Or those who are free from all doubts and fear. For all of them, yoginam etavat nirvidyamananam ichhatam akuto bhayam yoginam ripa nirnitam harer namanu kirtanam. So he says that no matter who you are, uh, uh, that chanting of the Hari Namanu Kirtanam, Hari Nama, that holy names of the Lord, Anukirtana means chanting them in accordance to certain prescribed rules and regulations, right? And we'll discuss that also. Prabhupada goes into great detailed, elaborate explanation of that. That chanting of the holy names of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and those who are self-satisfied. So whether you are full of material desire, whether you have no desires, or whether you are already in a transcendental situation, for all three, chanting of the holy names is the way. So if you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he established this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, of which ISKCON is a is a branch. So you'll see this entire Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, are actually inspired from the Bhagavatam. We know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the process of Nam Sankirtan, right? But what is a scriptural authority for that, one may ask? Why the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are only talking about chanting of holy names all the time? Where does it come from? It is coming straight from the teachings of Shukadeva Goswami. He says that Harer Namanu Kirtanam, this is the ultimate way for every transcendentalist, right? However, Prabhupada wants that this chanting has to be done in an offenseless way, because you are trying to connect to, just like how Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna, Krishna's holy names are non-different from him, right? Abhinnatvam nama naminaha, they are not the name and the named. So the holy name and the named, that is Krishna, they are non-different. And so you have to approach them. Imagine you are going to meet someone, but if you are offensive towards a person, will the person reciprocate with you, right? So what are these offenses to be avoided? Very nicely Prabhupada highlights them, right? These are very, very popular. Some of you may be already familiar with them. So Prabhupada writes very nicely, and I really like the way he words them in this purport. The first one, he says that the first offense is to vilify the great devotees who have preached about the glories of the Lord. Right? So one should not, be offensive. One should be respectful towards those who are trying to impart these teachings, who are trying to live by these teachings. Right? In fact, if you see, the common theme to all these 10 offenses is how the Lord and anything connected to the Lord, including his holy name, his devotees, right? They are all sacred, right? And he says the first offense is to vilify the great devotees who have preached about the glories of the Lord. The second offense is to see the holy names of the Lord in terms of worldly distinction. The Lord is the proprietor of all the universe, and therefore he may be known in different places by different names, but that does not in any way qualify the fullness of the Lord. Any nomenclature which is meant for the Supreme Lord is as holy as the others, because they are all meant for the Lord. Such holy names are as powerful as the Lord, and therefore there is no bar for anyone in any part of the world to chant and glorify the Lord by the particular names of the Lord as it is locally understood. Right? So if you see the Padma Puran interpretation of the second, the literal statement, it says about how to consider the names of devatas like Brahma and Vishnu to be at par, Brahma and Shiva to be at par with Lord Vishnu, or to think they are independent. But look at the way Prabhupada is giving a deeper understanding of this second offense. He says that how one should not think the different names of the Lord to be ordinary, and rather very beautifully he says that whatever is the locally understood name of the Lord, one should chant that. Once, Srila Prabhupada, is very famous talk, he would say that, I have not come here to convert you, I have come here to make you love God. If you want to chant the names of Allah, chant the names of Allah. If you want to chant the names of God, chant the names of God. Right? But love God. That's the point. Right? So if you see, this principle of love of God is that one common universal teaching across all the world traditions, across all the world religions. And unfortunately, today society has forgotten that, and that is the Bhagavad Dharma. That is a dharma that Bhagavatam is talking about, right? Which is the dharma of the soul, to love and be loved, to experience that love from the original source of love, who is the Supreme Lord, right? The third offense, Prabhupada writes, is to neglect the order of the authorized acharyas or spiritual masters, because do not think that we have the capacity to approach the Lord directly. We need to follow the process, just like how the word Anukirtana is written. Anukirtana means the kirtan according to what has been prescribed and taught to us in the past, like that. And then he said the fifth offense is to define the holy names of the Lord in terms of one's mundane calculations, right? Like sometimes, because Sanskritam grammar is such that you can interpret words differently, but different words have though you can give interpretations, but they also have a primary meaning. And sometimes, especially in modern age, I'm seeing a lot, people are trying to show off their scholarship and distort the meanings of different mantras, distort the meanings of different, so like Hare Krishna. So Krishna means black and Hare means green. So ultimately all colors are one, So you can't use your own imaginative, and this is like sometimes people, first of all, Hare does not mean green in that's from Hindi. It's a different language. It's not Sanskritam, right? And you're also not Hare, it's Hara Rang, right? So you see, people come up with their own mental speculation. Sometimes they take up, they mix English words and Sanskritam words, and come up with their own different. So this kind of interpretation one should not do, right? And the fifth offense, Prabhupada writes that how, fifth one is not interpret like that. And sixth one, he says that one should not interpret the holy name. The Lord is not imaginary, nor is his holy name. For people with poor fund of knowledge think that the Lord to be an imagination of the worshipper, and therefore his holy name is also imaginary, like that. Then the seventh offense, very nicely, he says that is to commit sins intentionally on the strength of the holy name. Because now that knowing the potency of the holy name, one should not indulge back in the same old materialistic activities and say, oh, I have a perfect medicine. Like sometimes, like we used to do that in our exuberant youthful days, when we used to eat 1 kilogram of ice cream, a whole tub of ice cream, right? And then, but you need a hack, because you will catch cold and next day you cannot teach. So what do? You will drink some hot water to soothe your vocal cords. So that way you nullify the effect of the ice cream. So you do some bad karma and do some good karma to counter the effect of bad karma. So that is not how the holy name is to be used. Then you are minimizing, because the whole point is, it's a very deep spiritual connection, right? So it's like, when you're cleansing, just because I know I have access to water, you don't roll in the dirt, right? You avoid dirt. So that's the whole idea. So one should not commit intentional sins again, right? And then the eighth offense is to consider the holy name of the Lord and his chanting method to be equal to some material auspicious activity. So understand, so in the Vedic literature, there are some punya karya, some good deeds, good karma. So spirituality is not positive karma, because the very word karma is something to do with material energy exchange. But spirituality is about spiritual energy exchange. So do not think that, listening to Bhagavatam, chanting of holy names, this is to bring in just some good luck. To definitely all good luck will come, but that good luck is secondary. That good luck is coming because the soul is awakening. Right? It's just a concomitant. It's like a secondary it's a byproduct of the primary process. The primary goal is to awaken your consciousness, right? And that's what happens. So therefore, do not think that this is some ordinary worldly positive karma deed, right? And then he writes, the ninth offense to instruct those who are not interested in chanting the holy names of the Lord, right, about the transcendental nature of the holy name. Because if you think about it, as we said earlier, sometimes even the truth coming at the right time, at the wrong time, may have a wrong impact. So this is the maturity that, especially when you're sometimes in our newfound exuberism and enthusiasm, we may start blurting out things which may not be understood or relevant, right? The technical word in Sanskrit is called adhikar. Adhikar means qualification. So when a person is not ready for a particular kind of spiritual understanding or a spiritual message, when you give that message prematurely, what you are doing is you are closing their heart forever towards spirituality. Or in the other sense, you are doing a great disservice to that soul. Or in other words, you are separating that soul from Krishna permanently. So you think Krishna will be happy with your endeavors, right? Because understand, holy name is Krishna himself. So when you do that, you are disconnecting people, you are making people, Prabhupada's spiritual master Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he used to say that, so in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, Vrindavan is considered the most sacred, and in the entire Vrindavan, the whole Mathura region, Govardhan is considered the most sacred. The famous mountain Govardhan, which Krishna lifted and performed so many extraordinary pastimes. And in Govardhan, there is a special water body, Kund, called as Radha Kund, which is considered the holiest of the holiest. In fact, all the great Gaudiya Vaishnava teachers, they always aspire to live by the banks of this Radha Kund and perform their devotional activities there, right? And then Prabhupada's spiritual master would sometimes forbid people to the point of saying that, you will go to hell if you do some of these activities. Sometimes, and today, if you go to Vrindavan, there's a very popular custom where you offer on a particular day of the year, you offer pumpkins to this holy kund, and it purely comes as part of this, positive karma, punya karma activities. Basically, the intention is when you offer a pumpkin to Radha Kund, your wife will get a pumpkin in her belly. Or in other words, she becomes pregnant, you get a child. So people who want children, right, they offer this pumpkin. So many such mundane rituals started over a period of time, right? So, and can you imagine when you make something very holy into an ordinary thing of this world, sometimes when your desire will not get fulfilled, then you are losing your faith on that spiritual object. And that way you are disconnecting yourself permanently. Right? Imagine, for example, you lost your faith in hospitals. Why? Because somebody told you that the samosa in this hostel is extraordinary. You go there and taste the samosa, and it was a very pathetic samosa because whatever, that day the cook was absent-minded. And now, because of the bad samosa in the hospital, you forever lost faith in the entire medical profession. Because tomorrow, hunger is okay, but when you genuinely fall sick, no restaurant in the world, no best samosa chef in this world can save you. Only a doctor in the hospital can save you. Right? So the purpose of going to the hospital is not to eat samosa, but to take medication and heal yourself. So the purpose of spirituality is not to get worldly things, but to heal your soul. Right? And in the process, that's why if you are approaching for the right purpose, you will get the right effect. But you approach for a mundane purpose, then you may or may not get. Because Krishna he will decide, okay, if by getting this tasty samosa, she will become a good devotee, okay, let me give her. Oh, if by not giving a good samosa, she will become a good devotee, I will not give her a good samosa. So Krishna controls certain higher things in our life, right? So we should not judge these spiritual things just based on their material efficacy. We should try to connect to their spiritual efficacy, like that. And ultimately, the 10th offense, he says, that is to become uninterested in the holy name of the Lord, even after hearing of the transcendental nature of the Lord. The effect of chanting of the holy name of the Lord is perceived by the chanter as liberation from the conception of false egoism, right? So when one, uh, despite knowing all this, if you again become complacent, that's when you're committing this. So these 10 offenses. So you can, I'm reading all of this from text number 11 of this second canto, first chapter. So you can go through that and make your separate notes. So these 10 offenses are something very important, because that's what, if Sukdev Goswami is giving us the ultimate spiritual modality is that of chanting of the holy names. And then in that process, these are the 10 pitfalls we need to avoid, right? And then he says that, what use is a long duration of life full of inexperience? A moment of full consciousness is worth far more than a whole duration of life. Because Parikshit Maharaj may be thinking, oh my God, I have to master the holy name. I have to hear all this Harikatha. I have only 7 days. Will I be able to do it? So Sukhdev Goswami is giving him encouragement that, you might have spent, whatever years, 30, 40 years, but 7 days is enough. In fact, forget 7 days. He says the great saintly king Khatwanga, a great king in the past, right? He was informed. So this great king, he fought for the devatas, and he spent his whole life fighting the demons on behalf of the devatas. And finally, after all the wars ended, he approached the devatas. They asked him for a boon. They said, okay, please tell me when I'm going to die. And then they calculate and said, you have few seconds left. But still he was not unfazed. One moment in that of purity of consciousness he was able to bring in, and that was enough for him to achieve perfection of life. So Khatwanga is that extraordinary king, saying that being informed of the duration of life would be only one moment more, still he freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the Supreme Lord. So that is the potency of absorbing your consciousness in the Supreme Lord. Even one moment of pure absorption is all, that's why I said our whole lifetime is to bring about that one perfect moment, right? Like, sometimes people, some big events we do, like I can only think of wedding, for example. People go through a whole year of planning for that one moment on the stage, or that one few hours on the stage or whatever, right? So think of our life to be something like that. Or sometimes you have some important presentation or something, you are spending a whole month preparing for that 5 minutes very important public talk, right? So ultimately your think of your whole life to be like that preparation. And then therefore he says, oh, but Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time you can perform all these things, right, and achieve the best purpose of your life. And then he very beautifully delineates what is to be done, right? And in a very beautiful way, Parikshit will be taught, or Sukdev Goswami is going to talk about the entire Ashtanga Yoga in summary, starting from Yama to Samadhi, in a very, very pure devotional way. So we will take that as a theme in our next class, right? But the theme for today's class was the final question in the eternal answer. So that final question that Parikshit asked was that of what is it that at the time, what is the important duty of every person, and especially person who's about to die in his final moment. And that answer, that eternal answer, whether it be Parikshit 5,000 years ago, whether it be us, I don't know, 50 years later, 5 years later, 5 days later, 5 minutes later, I don't know, right? Whoever whenever it may be, or 5,000 years later too, this answer is going to remain eternal. Harer Namanu Kirtanam and Ante Narayana Spriti. Remembering, absorbing your consciousness in the Supreme Lord by chanting the holy names. This is the eternal answer that will remain. So with that he ends. So let's take up any quick questions if anybody has, and then we will continue this theme next time. Yes, Apurva, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I wanted to ask, like you mentioned, that if we ask Krishna something, then he will give us if it's good for our spiritual life, and he won't if it's hindering our progress. So many times we pray to Krishna, which we think that it might be good for my spiritual life, but we don't know if it's or not. So what should our prayers be to Krishna in that case? Because we don't know what will be good for us.
Yeah, so when we are not clear about what to pray, so two answers: pray that you can pray, or it's also good practice in the Bhakti tradition. It is recommended that we repeat the prayers of great souls. So when you read through prayers of Bhagavatam, so until we do not develop the clarity of intelligence, it's good to borrow prayers from other enlightened masters, the great personalities that we read. In the first canto, we read so many prayers, from Uttara's prayers to Kunti's prayers to Bhishma's prayers, right? Sutta Goswami's prayers. So we can repeat those prayers, right? That's a very powerful way. Yeah, so that's the point. So at one level, we should pray that give me that clarity so that how I can pray properly. Pray that you pray. And two, repeat the prayers of these enlightened masters. Of course, the most ultimate prayer, Prabhupada many times would say, may thy will be done. But be ready, huh? Are you ready to handle it? May thy will be done gently. That will be our prayer. Krishna, I know your plan is going to work, but just be gentle on me when you are executing your plan. I don't want to get squished again. Right? So yeah. So we should repeat the prayers of the previous acharyas. Like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. So let's end our discussion here, and we'll meet again next week. And it's a very, I'm not going to stick to the chapter format because there's going to be a little overlap across chapters, especially in the first 3-4 chapters. There's going to be a little bit of overlap, so I'm going to take theme wise. So next week we'll have this other theme of how the first stage in the realization of the absolute truth, what is that methodology going to be. And we're going to revisit our dear friend Patanjali and understand, revisit all the yamas and niyamas and the dharanas and the dhyanas and samadhi stages. However, Sukdev Goswami brings in a very beautiful devotional understanding to all of that. So we're going to revisit that in our next week. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.